Welcome to the Richard Sherman Podcast. Hit that sub button if you're new. We're here to give you great NFL content. Please tune in.
Talk about another division test. We saw one in Cincinnati today, and the Baltimore Ravens came in. They started out looking like they were going to take care of business, and then Cincy got going, and Ja'Marr Chase got involved. And this was a game that you saw Joe Burrow earn his keep. I mean, throwing for 392 yards, 5 touchdowns, career high, but they still cannot get the W, and it was at home. Is it time to panic in Cincy?
Yes, it is. It's definitely time to panic in Cincy. I mean, we just came off of the Uber Eats almost perfect defense to a game where nobody played defense.
Nope.
You talk about, what is this, 79 points combined. Give Lamar Jackson a lot of credit. His 6th game with 4 passing touchdowns and 50 rush yards to most in NFL history. He's 9-2 against the Cincinnati Bengals in his career. But for the Cincinnati Bengals, when you play this well offensively, you talk about the numbers and you give Joe Burrow a ton of credit. You know, I've been critical of him at times when he struggled, so I have to be just as praising I have to praise him just as high as I criticize him when he plays well, because he was 30 of 39, 392 yards, 5 touchdowns, career high, 1 interception. Then you got Ja'Marr Chase, 10 for 193 and 2 touchdowns. It doesn't get much better than that, Mitchell. I mean, those are video game numbers. And then you say, who else was eating? T. Higgins, 9 for 83 and another 2 touchdowns. When you play that well offensively and you lose, oh, yes, sir, it's cause for concern. Yes, I am very concerned, because that doesn't make sense. Quarterback throws for 5 touchdowns in an L. But you know why, Mitchell? It's because Derrick Henry really put his stamp on it, especially in overtime after the McPherson missed field goal. Let's not be critical of McPherson, because that bobbled snap is the reason he missed that field goal. You can't bobble the snap in that situation. He was halfway through his swing before they ever even got the ball placed, and there's nothing you can do about that timing. You can't really stop and slow down. People are going to come block that kick, so you have to keep your same rhythm and just hope the ball gets put down. But the 51-yard rush in overtime to set up the game-winning field goal was incredible. That's why they brought Derrick Henry here, to take some pressure off Lamar Jackson, and that's exactly what he was able to do in overtime. Huge play. Zay Flowers, great game, 7 catches for 111 yards. Kyle Hamilton getting back involved, getting back to form, had a sack in the game. Marlon Humphreys, interception in this game. But you really start to get concerned, because you talk about the Cincinnati Bengals and their slow starts, but usually you're not playing this well offensively with the slow starts. Usually these are the games you're winning. Hey, it was a slow start, and then Joe Burrow start throwing 5 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, and then all of a sudden they look like the team there. But they're not. Their defense isn't stepping up, and that's the biggest concern. They just gave up 41 points, and they have struggled all season, giving up points, giving up yards, just not looking like the defense that caused a lot of chaos and created turnovers and created havoc on their way to a Super Bowl early in Joe Burrow's career. They're not making the changes that are necessary. They don't have the personnel, it looks like, to really be a strong defense. And without that, you're going to waste offensive performances like this from Joe Burrow and T. Higgins and Ja'Marr Chase, where in any other game you'd say this should be a walk-off win for them, but not against the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson and everything he was able to do. Good game by them. Unfortunate for the Cincinnati Bengals, because they had a clear chance to win it at overtime with the McPherson field goal, but they didn't get it done. And now the Ravens go to the Commanders and the Bengals go to the Giants, coming off a big win against the Seattle Seahawks. That's going to be a better game than people think.
No doubt. And this Ravens team, this might be the biggest upgrade this offseason. You go from Gus Edwards to Derrick Henry.
Mm-hmm.
And now we see this new version of Lamar Jackson. He's already at league MVP, but when he's throwing for 4 touchdowns and he's getting the likes of Zay Flowers involved for 7 and 111, we saw a little bit more of Mark Andrews today.
Mm-hmm.
This combo with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry can be absolutely lethal. And now it's time for Players in Prime Time, brought to you by our friends and partners over at Breitling. No shock, but this week the player in primetime goes to Lamar Jackson. I guess it probably would have gone to Joe Burrow if that kick were different, but we got to give it to the winner, Lamar Jackson, going 26 for 42, 348, 4 tutties, 55 yards. I got my Breitling on today.
Jeez.
It's another beautiful one, Richard. Let's shout out to our friends and partners over at Breitling, and congrats to Lamar Jackson, this week's player in primetime. We had another primetime game. Houston Texans, Stefon Diggs gets some revenge against the Buffalo Bills. And we saw Josh Allen on the struggle bus. I think he probably wishes he had Stefon Diggs in this game. Khalil Shakir cannot possibly mean this much to this team, because what you saw today was just a Josh Allen we've never seen, Richard. 9 for 30 for 131 and a touchdown.
Yeesh.
It looks like they do not have the pieces in Buffalo that they need. Khalil Shakir's out. They're turning to Keon Coleman, who only had 1 catch, granted a big one for 49 yards and a touchdown. But this Bills team does not look like the same Bills team we've seen in years past. They got out to a hot start this year, and now they've dropped 2 straight. Where's your concern meter with the Buffalo Bills, Richard?
Well, it's getting there, Mitchell. It's moving up. It's probably about an 8 right now, just because of the injuries, the inconsistency. But let's not make it a bigger deal than what it is, because they had many chances to win this game, and they had a chance to win in regulation. It wasn't a blowout. This wasn't a game where they just got totally manhandled or outclassed by any way, even when Josh Allen struggled mightily. 98 yards total in the last 2 first halves. That's a problem. But they caught 3 deep passes on their own 3-yard line. That didn't make sense late in that game. That was some questionable decision making from McDermott when they punted to the Texans. They were already in field goal range. Nico Collins going down with the injury is concerning if you're the Houston Texans, but again, they're finding ways, just like the Kansas City Chiefs, to win ugly, to win games where it's close, it's a dogfight, it's a single-digit game, and they're doing that consistently. Cam Akers had a solid game, in replacement of Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon should be coming back in the near future. Stefon Diggs had a really solid revenge game, 6 for 82. But C.J. Stroud looked like his old self, 28 of 38, 331. A touchdown and an interception. Khalil Davis with a sack. They look like a really complete team. And I know Buffalo's on a downward spiral right now, but they had a chance to win that game. I like Terrell Bernard. He had another interception this game. He's been stepping up in a big way he's been a bright spot in that secondary for the Buffalo Bills. But again, Josh Allen says everybody eats speed. This is sometimes that strategy, that philosophy doesn't work as well. And this is one of those games where they're starting to find answers. They're starting to cover these guys well. They're starting to make tighter windows. And when you don't have a guy that can win one-on-one consistently, a go-to number 1 stud receiver, then you run into situations where you're going to struggle. James Cook, this is probably one of his better games, 20 carries for 82 yards and a touchdown. And so they were leaning on the running game, and I think that's what kept them in this ball game. But this game at the Jets on Monday Night Football is going to be huge for them. They're 3-2, still got a winning record, still at the top of this division, but things can change in a hurry if they lose that game. Then they're sharing then they only have a share of the lead with the New York Jets. Things are changing. Houston has a chance to really establish themselves as a contender, and with a 5-1 record, if they go to New England and beat the New England Patriots, that's a very realistic possibility. But anything can happen, and I don't put anything past anybody right now. I could not have predicted some of these games that have happened in the National Football League. I could not have predicted Minnesota Vikings being 5-0. I could not have predicted the San Francisco 49ers being 2-3 at this point in the season.